This is based on case study number 1, learning and development, a new software system to enhance productivity. So let's get started. A little bit about the project background. There are 5 locations total, 3 locations in the United States, one location in Mexico, 1 location in India, 500 employees total. This is a company that is growing exponentially, and it has been determined that the new software system needs to be implemented to keep up with the growth. Training will be needed for employees on how to use the new software system. So currently the HR system that is in place is Ultimate Software, or known as UltiPro. While UltiPro is great, the company is needing a stronger human resources information system known as an HRIS that has more of an automation process, as UltiPro tends to be more manual. Thus, the company is considering Workday as their new HRIS. This HRIS has a more sleek look and can do everything that UltiPro can do, plus even more with reporting, payroll, performance reviews, analytics. That's not an exhaustive list. It can do way more. But this training is focused on how to navigate the homepage of Workday, which includes timekeeping, how to find information such as benefits or pay stubs, how to complete tasks assigned in Workday, and how to update employee information. Depending on which department the employees are in, they will have different types of access. This access must also be included in specific department training. So our goal is to have a set standardized training that all employees will partake in. As said previously, this will be department-based, and training materials must reflect each department and their access. Likewise, manager training will be set up as well, as they will have more access to items such as performance reviews, ability to approve time cards and time off requests, and access to their department budget and objectives. These trainings must be detail-oriented and organized, just because there are so many different types of trainings. So how or what can help us stay on track and organized for this training to reach all employees at all locations? Well, that is when the ADDIE model comes into play. We will use the ADDIE model to help create a systematic and organized approach. This is a 5-step process to a successful training session. So the first phase is analysis. In this phase, we will look at the task at hand by identifying the problem, creating a solution, and determine if training is needed. The second phase is design. During the design phase, we will create the training sessions, objectives, activities, and exercises, as well as the delivery format. The third phase is development phase. In the development phase, this is where we will create course materials and training items and review as needed before the 4th phase of implementation. Implementation is when we will deliver the training. And then the final phase is evaluation. The evaluation phase is where we will review if the training was successful. And normally this is done over a period of time. So going into the analysis phase, as advised in our previous slide, analyze is the first phase. The needs analysis is the most critical step in the training system model, because the information collected, which is using a combination of needs analysis tools, helps define the specific gaps that exist between current and desired organizational and individual performance. A gap analysis is important for the analysis phase of ADDIE. The gap analysis looks at the entire organization at hand. Once tasks and functions have been identified and the current level of knowledge has been determined, then the gaps can be identified. There are 4 different types of gaps analysis. However, the ones that apply to this training session are the needs gaps and organization gaps. The needs gaps are deficiencies in skills, knowledge, and attitudes that are needed by employees to carry out their assignments and duties. The organizational gap is deficiencies in the way the organization is conceived, designed, and managed. So continuing that analysis, in this slide, we can see a new software system can improve the gaps between needs and the organization. We have concluded the following. 1, the training will enhance employees' ability to find information via the HRIS, lessen emails that go to HR with same old questions all the time, and be able to systematically navigate Workday. There are many different cultural aspects with this company. So we have different locations in 3 different countries. And then the third is training everyone at the same time in the workforce at the same pace across the board, meaning that every employee will have the same knowledge and will receive at the same time. Processes will stay the same while also being enhanced and not as manual. This will save time and money from productivity as employees can complete tasks quicker than what they are currently doing in UltiPro. So moving on into the design phase. The outcome of the design phase is to create an instructional plan, which will serve as a guide to presenters or facilitators of the training session. While designing, we must cater to the culturally relevant, and I'm sorry I can't pronounce this, andragogy. Andragogy means or refers to helping adults learn. Before going into the training materials, let's look at culturally relevant andragogy. So how do we integrate this into the training session? There are 4 approaches to do so. The first approach is a contributions approach. So this is a minimalist approach to multicultural education that would involve adding a topic or unit to the curriculum. So for example, if you were teaching a workshop on marriage and family, you might also include a selection on marriage and family in another culture. The second is additive approach. This seeks greater integration of cultural group content into an already existing curriculum. In a course, so for example, like in a course on adult learning, the basic and traditional themes of a course would be preserved instead of rethinking the basic aims and categories that define the course. The third is transformative approach. So this is where the educator strives to present material from a number of different vantage points. This approach provides multiple perspectives in the curriculum and to encourage learners to think more critically about the topic. So for example, in a class on adult learning, a unit on the concept of critical reflection might be viewed from a variety of cultural, ethnic, racial, and gender perspectives. And then the final one is the social action approach. This approach, the teacher encourages learners to use the knowledge that they learn to address a problem and designs learning experiences to provide for them to do so. Following a problem posing strategy, the teacher creates situations in which learners consider alternatives to an issue or a problem, and then select one to develop an action-based learning experience to address the issue. So for example, the facilitator creates situations in which learners consider alternatives to an issue or a problem, and then select one to develop an action-based learning experience to address the issue. With that being said, before we get into the continuation, there can be some challenges with those approaches as well, such as stereotyping, language, invisibility, and balance sensitivity. However, we have considered and reviewed these topics to create training materials that will lower these challenges through this training. So design continued. For the design of this presentation, we will also need to focus on the cultural aspects. In addition, andragogy must be focused on intellectual skills, cognitive strategy, verbal information, attitudes, and motor skills of employees to create an effective training session. So the first is the analysis of learners. Every participant has a different adult learning style. It's proven that different materials in the training will increase the knowledge retention of adult learners. Review of analysis or the work environment. Where is this training going to take place, which is online. The training materials to be given or designed. A blueprint will be a map of the process of the training. And then a pop agenda will also outline the training, but in more detail. All of these will accomplish our learning objective, which is to fully understand how to operate the new Workday system so that tasks and productivity are done efficiently and effectively by employees. So moving on into the development phase. This phase is used to create the course materials and training items. The training session will be done through the online platform at the company. The learning and development team will create a step-by-step session for employees and managers. So this table right here, it's divided up by managers, employees, and the training features. So employees, as I said earlier, have access to those simple tasks like submitting PTO, submitting time, navigating Workday, how to complete tasks in the inbox, how to find their pay stubs, etc. Of course, some employees have different access depending on their department. Like an employee in the benefits and HR will need access to the benefits, training and tools. while someone in a call center might not need access to anything but their personal items. Managers have all the same things, except for they will also, depending on their department, will be included in the instructional video for those accesses. So for example, finance may need access to financials, or HR BPs might need to be trained on how to upload PIPs or the performance review process in Workday. Training features. So there's 3 different languages based on preference. These employees have the option to choose. We wanted to make it so that if we did have someone that's native language is English and lives in Mexico, we want them to have the option to choose which language they prefer. So as said, manager, department, employee specify. There will be a pretest knowledge with 10 questions, does not have to have a certain grade. Each session will have an interactive feature where the employees and managers will have to click through and interact with the system so that information is better retained. Each session will include an area of the Workday platform with a quiz after each section for retention. Must pass at least a 90% to go to the next section of the training. There will also be a post-test with 10 questions, does not have to have a certain grade. There will also be a Likert scale given to employees and managers who all go through this training with a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest of how they felt about the training. So going into the implementation process, this phase is when the training is given. It allows for observation on how the training is going. However, since this is an online platform, observation will be at the end of the implementation phase. These observations, as I said previously, include the pre and post tests, Likert scale, and then data on how many times section quizzes had to be taken by participants. So we'll have that tracked in the system. And then also data on the future, the responses, surveys, et cetera. And then ROI will need to be calculated. Normally, this is monetary return on investment, but since this is a training session, ROI will need to be calculated according to the training and learning objectives, which is for a more productive output and less of trying to find information from employees. So moving on into the evaluation plan. The evaluation plan is divided up between short-term and long-term goals. So as you can see, we have our short-term and long-term goals listed here. Short-term is under a year, long-term is over a year. So for the short-term goals, we have using that Likert scale and pre-post test for training satisfaction or employee satisfaction. Review data quarterly, so data on emails sent to HR. Send anonymous or send quarterly surveys that will be anonymous if filled out by an employee that pertain Workday performance, thoughts, and employee satisfaction of the training of Workday. Communicate new Workday updates to the company if there's any changes. And then consider a new hire onboarding Workday training session. Long-term, it can relate to that short term. So review all data pulled for emails from each quarter. So putting that all together and analyzing those common questions. Complete a new hire onboarding Workday training session. This doesn't have to be within a year. If you want to wait on that data, it can be at the 1.5 year or 2-year mark. And then make changes to training from data on Workday performance and employee satisfaction from those surveys and analyzing those questions. So in conclusion, the implementation of these training sessions for the Workday system will allow a more strategic, efficient, and productive completion of everyday tasks that employees complete across the board. There are some recommendations to be considered. The first is to have leadership stress on the importance of training. So advising employees that this training will make their tasks a lot easier. The second is measure and analyze the training program and sustainment plan, as we said in the previous slide. And then last but not least, allow regular feedback opportunities and provide material reminders to employees. So if there's a section where employees aren't retaining, have their manager print out tips and tricks and give that to their department via email or handout. So always allow that to happen. Again, thank you for coming to my talk.